Hey, how's it going, everybody? Today I'm going to be talking about the brand new Dune movie, or should I say Dune Part 1, directed by Denis Villenueve. This movie is also based off of the popular book series of the same name written by Frank Herbert. This movie stars Timothée Chalamet, Rebecca Ferguson, and Oscar Isaac, and the cast is filled out by Zendaya, Stellan Skarsgård, Dave Bautista, Jason Momoa, Javier Bardem, Josh Brolin, David Dastmalchian, and so many more. A couple times I looked down at my notes for that one because there's so many notable people in this movie. The cast for this movie is incredible. There's so many recognizable names throughout the movie. So let's get into the performances of Dune. Timothée Chalamet was a standout to me in this movie. He plays the main character, Paul, and overall, in this movie, he was really good. He had a freshness that no one else really had in the movie. I haven't seen him in anything else, but he stood out in this movie as a sort of a fresh character, which is a good thing because he's the main character. He should stand out. And he definitely did in this movie. There's also a lot of times in this movie where he's able to show off his acting chops, and when he does, it's really good. Another standout in this movie was Sharon Duncan Brewster, who plays a more minor role in the movie. But she stood out to me when I was watching it. I don't think I've seen her in anything else, but she stood out to me in the movie. She had a depth that no one else really had in the movie, and she stood out to me. Even though she didn't have a ton of screen time and she was a much smaller role. But overall, everybody was good in this movie. There wasn't anyone who I really thought didn't do a good job. Everyone was solid. Those were just some standouts that I saw while watching. Another great thing about Dune is the set pieces. They're absolutely beautiful. Denis Villenueve and his team did a fantastic job with this. Every single place looks distinct, different, and really beautiful pretty much all the time. He also did a really good job of making the movie feel like there's a world beyond what we're seeing on the screen. And that's something I can't say for a lot of movies. I'm sure that was aided by Dune's very deep lore in the books, but when you're watching, it really feels like there's a world outside of what you're seeing on the screen. And it really aids the spectacle, the larger-than-life nature of this movie. I also love that the movie takes its time. This movie clocks out at 150 minutes. It's longer than the traditional sci-fi movie, but I think overall, it does a really good job with that. I love that the sequences feel a little more drawn out. We get to learn more about the characters, we get to see them in more situations. And I think overall it works really well. The one thing is there was a time, maybe around 20 minutes until the end of the movie, where I thought it was going on a little bit long. But for the most part, I really love that the sequences are more drawn out, nothing feels rushed, it feels like it takes its time. And for the most part, it works really well. As I said earlier, this movie is a part 1 for a part 2 that's hopefully greenlit soon. One thing that part 1s often struggle with is that it feels very unsatisfying when it ends. It feels like it's just promotion for the next movie. This movie is still satisfying, even though it's just a part 1. Someone I watched it with said that it felt like an origin story to Dune Part 2. And I think that's true. It definitely sets up Dune Part 2, but when the movie ends, it still feels satisfying. And that's something I can say for only a handful of Part 1 movies. It certainly doesn't wrap everything up. In fact, it pretty much wraps nothing up because we're going into Part 2, but it still feels satisfying. It doesn't feel like it ended right in the middle of an action sequence. It feels like a good place to end it before we pick up, hopefully, on Part 2 later on. The movie also overall has fantastic action sequences. Everything is very visceral. It's tense, but it stays on the characters. So even though there's a really big battle going on, we're still focusing more on what Timothée Chalamet's character is doing, for instance. We're focused on the big grandness of it all, but we're not losing the characters in the mix. The stunt work in this movie is also really good. It feels high octane, it feels big scale, but overall still really good, and that was a great thing to see. Now, because of its source material, the movie had a lot to do in terms of exposition, and one thing I have a lot of problems with in Hollywood today is a lot of the movies that come out feel like they're always weighed down by a lot of exposition. And this movie certainly does have a lot of exposition, but it's not forced like a lot of Hollywood movies are today. One of the cool things in this movie was they had film journals that Timothée Chalamet's character watched, and that sort of explains a lot of the things we needed to know. And it was right out in front of you. It didn't feel like it was forced. As you know, this thing happened. It wasn't like that. It was right in front of your face. It was basically telling you it was exposition, and it worked because of that. Exposition that was conveyed by dialogue was also still very good. It didn't feel forced. So when the movie needed to convey exposition in a more traditional way, it still did a very good job with that. Overall, this movie is also really well written. That helps keep it engaging for the 2-hour, 30-minute runtime. One thing I'll say about this movie, and you can interpret it as good or bad, but I definitely feel like this movie deserves a second watch. I felt like when I was watching the movie, I got the gist of what was going on, but there definitely feels like a lot of hidden details in the movie that I would need to watch the movie again for to fully understand. I definitely will see this movie again in theaters. It's definitely deserving of watching on the big screen, even though it is on HBO Max currently, but it's definitely a movie deserving of a second watch. I'm really excited for Dune Part 2, provided it's greenlit. I feel like this is one of the best sci-fi movies to come out in recent memory. This was really entertaining, engaging, big spectacle. Denis Villenueve did a great job with this movie, and I'm really excited to see it again. I'm gonna give Dune Part 1 a 3.5. So what did you think of the movie? Put it in the comment section down below. And what movie would you like me to review next? Put all that down in the comments down below. I got Eternals coming up next week, and some movies before then as well. So yeah, can't wait to see you then. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye.